Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about smut. One of my personal favorite things. But really, we are going to be talking about the saga series, called Cruel Shifters. The first book in this 6-part series is called Psycho Shifters. It's a story by Jasmine. To be honest, it's a bit of a wild series book that we'll be talking about today. Series as a whole, though, it's a little wild. It's a little out there. But I read almost the entire series within like a week. I have not finished the very last book because I'm worried that it will cloud my feelings about the rest of the series. I also tend to do that. I don't know why. Anyway, I'll stop babbling. The Cruel Shifter series is a 6-part saga split between 2 main characters. So it's basically like 2 trilogies. The first 3 books are centered around Sadie. The next 3 books, I won't say who they're centered around, but it's a different POV, different protagonist, different main character. But it is someone that we know very well from the original trilogy, I suppose. This world, this universe, is an alpha, beta, omega story, otherwise known as the omegaverse. Thanks, Supernatural fandom. For those who are unawares, I will get into the specifics of Alpha, Beta, Omega, and the Omegaverse a little bit later into the video. Our story for today revolves around Sadie, our protagonist, who has had an extremely difficult life. Think Harry Potter, but with literal actual beatings. You will think Harry got off easy after hearing all of the absolute BS that Sadie went through, trying not to cuss in the first 30 seconds of the video. While Harry lived with his aunt and uncle and had child protective services and just general decency on his side, there is no such entity or standard in this universe. Sadie, our main character, lives with her little sister, Lucinda, in a tavern run by a man named Dick. Not Rich, not Richard, not Richie, Dick. And Dick is, well, let's just say he lives up to his name. Although specifics aren't mentioned, Dick basically acquired Sadie and Lucinda, who are blood relatives and have absolutely no blood relation to Dick. How he got his hands on them, we have no clue. The story never really gets into that, even by book 5, which I'm on. So if that's a question that you have, too fucking bad. Some direct quotes about Dick. Oh, this video is getting demonetized, age restricted, whatever. Anyway, Dick was our master. We were his servants. At 20 years old, I was starting to think that Dick had beef with my flesh and was actively trying to remove it from my body. So he's a great guy. Everything Dick does to Sadie makes her an incredibly hard person, both inside and outside. Her back, chest, shoulders are all covered in literal scars from trying to stay monetized on here, trying to do this within the YouTube parameters, but there was a belt and that motion involved. Her voice is incredibly deep and rough from all of the years of screaming. And it's actually kind of talked about quite a lot, her rough, gravelly voice, just so sexy. Oh, yeah, she's also a sarcastic little shit with a very healthy dose of mental issues. Now, Sadie is the only one that has to endure these horrific beatings from Dick. Lucinda, he does not touch at all. We very quickly learn, I think maybe in the prologue, that Sadie lives in a place called the Shifter realm. Their sun is a deep red, which likely means that it's a dwarf star, which definitely explains why the whole place is barren and frozen. It snows all the time. There are no seasons there. Sadie describes it as such. Snow-capped mountains towered around us, and everything as far as the eye could see was cold, white, and uninhabited. The Shifter realm was a cold, barren place. Sounds great. A little description of our main character, Sadie. She is platinum blonde with bright red eyes. Insert Twilight reference here. Is she related to Edward Cullen? Maybe we'll never know. The crossover we didn't know we needed. Sadie describes her own appearance as, at 5.5 feet tall and barely 120 pounds, I was a runty null. We'll get into nulls later. Her little sister Lucinda is basically like a photocopy of her, just like a little bit softer. Sadie has like hard edges to her face, and apparently Lucinda is all curves and beautiful. She is a few years younger than Sadie, who is 20 years old in this first book. Like so many other worlds, there is a hierarchy here. On the very bottom are what we call null shifters. These are just boring, regular, everyday human beings. The losers with no power, normies, if you will, and the ABO, consisting of alphas, betas, and omegas. I don't know how I'm not gonna get this video age restricted, okay? In this particular universe, alphas are like top tier. They are strong and powerful, typically like fucking hot as well. They literally shift into animals. Some like actual animals like bears, like everyday, like still in the world animals, and sometimes they shift into like other creatures that are more mythical, like dragons, or extinct animals like a saber-toothed tiger. Little hint there for the future. Alphas are also immortal. Kind of. They can live forever. They don't die from old age, but they can die. In this particular world, I can't remember if it's discussed in the first book exactly how to kill an alpha, but they definitely discuss it later, so I'll go ahead and tell you now. The only way to kill an alpha in this universe is to drain all of their blood and, remove this portion of the body off. I don't want to say the word. Decapitates a little. Yeah, but that's the only way to actually kill an alpha. Now, betas are kind of lower on the totem pole. They aren't as hot. They are still strong, but not as strong as alphas, and they cannot shift. They do have longer lives, but they aren't immortal like the alphas. They will die of old age. And our omegas, equally as hot as the alphas, not always as strong. They can shift into an animal, but it's like way less cool than what the alphas can shift into. Typically it's an animal that like you could win against in a fight, it's gonna be something like kind of small, whereas the alphas will shift into much stronger, more powerful, more threatening animals. The omegas are also kind of immortal. The exact parameters of their immortality are never really like dived into, but for the sake of things, let's just say it's the same rules as the alphas. Now, the difference with omegas is that you have to have an omega in order to create an ABO, and I do mean by reproduction. Now, those specifics are just in this universe. To get into the omegaverse just a little bit, thanks again, Supernatural. I really didn't know this before starting the script for this video, but the Supernatural fandom created the omegaverse. Those people could move fucking mountains, let me tell you. Anyway, across the omegaverse, alphas are very dominant, and they are typically pretty aggressive as well, which holds up in our story as well. Alphas sometimes have this thing called a knot. Probably won't be getting into that until later. Maybe in another video. Maybe I'll start a Patreon so I can actually talk about this stuff without having to like swerve around YouTube guidelines. We'll see. Anyway, more on the knot stuff. Maybe never on YouTube. But they're dominant is the whole point. To my understanding, they are the only ones that can impregnate an omega with a pregnancy that would result in either an alpha, beta, or an omega. In the omegaverse as a whole, alphas can be male or female, but in our book, they are only male. In the omegaverse, betas are like pretty unimpressive. They are basically just there to get in the way. Quite literally, like sometimes that's their only fucking purpose, just to be shits and be in the way. Betas can be men and women both in the omegaverse and in our universe as well. Now, the omegas. Typically they are the submissive ones. They tend to be much smaller physically and not really threatening at all. Our omegas are basically the breeders. They're the ones who get pregnant. In the omegaverse, a man or a woman can be impregnated. That does not carry over into this specific universe. Only the ladies be getting pregnant in this universe. There's also something called a heat. We're not getting into that in this book though, because in this book we really don't deal with omegas. We can talk about that a little bit more in the next book. Different story for a different video. If my explanation of the omegaverse was confusing or you're still not getting it, go ahead and go to Reddit. They can help you out over there. Maybe I'll put some links down below. Maybe not. We'll see. Now, with literally all of this exposition in place, which there's literally like the prologue, let's get into our first freaking chapter. Our protagonist, Sadie, who's in her 20s, who is 20 years old exactly, actually, is getting like lashings with a belt from Dick. And it's like brutal. Don't read this book if that's hard for you to read. Read the content warnings. Content warnings. Content warnings. So anyway, our first chapters, Dick's YouTube guidelines, Okay, so that's what's happening. And Sadie clicks on something that she calls the numb. What's the numb, you ask? Well, it's a homicidal voice in Sadie's head that tells her what to do when she clicks it on. Totally normal, right? Sadie has basically used this numb, as she identifies it, to withstand the horrors that she has had to face living with Dick. That could be so misconstrued. Nobody take that line out of this video and post it anywhere. This voice in her head that she has the power to just click on is homicidal, and it tells her what to do with seemingly militaristic tactical training and knowledge. Also huge amounts of fighting skills that Sadie does not have. Like, she's lived and worked in a tavern, basically a bar, her whole life. She barely got through schooling, so she's not like the sharpest crayon in the box. This numb not only tells her what to do, but it basically clicks off all of her emotions and a lot of her sensations of pain, so she can get through all of these horrific things she's had to live through. The origins of the numb and kind of further explanations on it are not really talked about until at least the third book, so we'll leave it there for now. To hear Sadie's description of it, the numb clicked on. Endless numbness, cold relief. The switch in my brain flipped me into an emotionless bitch that could survive anything. So, chapter 1. The is happening, and Sadie clicks on the numb, and the numb basically tells her to murk Dick. Is like, take his ass out. So she does. I can't remember exactly. She might have like gotten the belt away from him, and she starts like with the YouTube guidelines, Now, Sadie, as I mentioned, is like 5'5". She is pretty small, and Dick is a beta, so he is much taller and much more physically impressive, I guess. He is kind of described as like a big fat dude, but somebody who can obviously overpower skinny, scrawny, little 5'5", 120 soaking wet Sadie. So she is like, with the numb clicked on, is really like taking this guy out with the, that's happening. And she's about to get her done until enter Cloak Guy. Literally, that's what he's described as, Cloak Guy. I think Sadie sees his eye color as like a blue, but he has a hood over the rest of his face. It's in like darkness. She can't identify his face. So she's like choking him out and just stops when the Cloak Guy comes in. Cloak Guy says, I don't have the exact quote written down, but basically, I've been informed that somebody that's 20 years old, that's a servant living here, needs to be tested. What's this test, you ask? Well, allow me to tell you. It's a little wild. Buckle in. In this world, everybody is tested at something called the Sacred Lake at the age of 20, because that's the age that your ABO powers, I guess, would manifest in this universe. This test consists of bleeding into a lake, and the lake will turn a different color based on whether you are an alpha, beta, or an omega. Why? I don't know. I didn't write the book. Don't ask me. Okay, so here's what all of our colors mean. So there's like, this is what Cloak Guy says when he brings Sadie there. I guess it's like, I don't know, the magical words to initiate stuff. I don't know, whatever. He says, turn half the lake black for an alpha's beast, turn a quarter of the lake purple for a beta's strength, and turn the river's edge yellow for an omega's seed. I don't like that word in this context. I don't like the word seed in that context. I don't know. It's just, do we have to? Can we come up with another fucking word? I don't like it. Anyway, Cloak Guy takes her to the lake, says the magical words, and slices, I don't know, her hand or her forearm or something open, and has her bleed into the lake. The lake turns totally black. Now, in case you didn't remember, it's not supposed to turn totally black. It's supposed to turn half black for an alpha. So the lake turns totally black for Sadie, and Cloak Guy's basically like, okay, she's an alpha. That's not weird that the whole lake turned black. It's fine. She's an alpha. Whatever. Anyway, after it turns totally black and Cloak Guy sees that, he nabs her and is like, I'm taking you with me. As Sadie is being taken away, she turns back to the lake and sees that it has turned completely red. Per our description, whatever side I'm gonna put it on, that's not a color. That's not part of the process. That's not a thing. So she's kind of geeked, and Cloak Guy makes no comments because he's not a conversationalist. He just nabs her. Starts running. She passes out, which she does many times in this book, and wakes up on basically the front steps of a fortress. What is a fortress, you ask? Allow me to tell you. Fortresses house the alpha, betas, and omegas who protect the portals. Duh. What do these portals connect to? Other realms. Of course. How do you not know this? Now, the realms that it connects to my understanding, are the human and the fae realms. These are the other realms that are talked about widely, at least in this first book. For unknown reasons, the Shifter realm is at war with the Fae Queen. We love a monarchy. And she has been sending monsters through these portals. The rumor is that she wants the Shifter realm for herself and is trying to take it over. I don't know why she wants this place. It sounds like it fucking sucks. Just saying. Sounds like a shit place. Some exposition dumps from Sadie. There were only a few fortresses in the entire realm, and everyone knew they were located near portals that led to the Fae realm. They were hidden in remote, mountainous valleys, and their locations were top secret. Portals were the battlegrounds where alphas and betas fought against Fae monsters and stopped them from intruding into our realm. So Sadie just shows up at this place totally on her own. Cloak Guy is like mysteriously gone. Oh yeah, did I mention there are 3 insanely hot dudes standing over Sadie when she wakes up? Because yeah, that happened. To give a quick little description of our boys, first guy she sees is Asher. He is ridiculously handsome, of course, covered in massive muscles and tattoos of roses and flames. Every inch of his arms, legs, chest, and neck were covered in colorful flame and rose designs. Massive onyx horns jutted out from a bed of shaggy gold hair. To dump a little info on you that we don't get in this first meeting, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now so I don't forget, Asher is a 21-year-old and he smells like pine trees. The smelling thing is like it's such a big part of this book. I might not mention it again, but I just want to get it said because Sadie multiple times talks about how all of these men smell so very specific. I think it's like an alpha thing, but whatever. The second person that she sees is Cobra. Gee, I wonder what he shifts into. Cobra is described as, according to Sadie, he looked like an ancient statue of a marble hero. He was gorgeous. Skin was so pale that his light turquoise veins sparkled. Is reminding you of anybody? Just saying. An inky swath of hair fell around his eyes, a deep emerald that was darker and more vibrant than the coniferous trees in the forest around him. Cobra is 100 years old, and he smells like frost, or she sometimes describes it as like fresh snow. Now, to me, I haven't been around all that much snow. I've only lived in the Pacific Northwest for like a year now, but snow kind of just smells like clean. Our last hunky man that she meets is Jax. She describes him as, the man had dark skin, long braids hung down to his biceps, and hundreds of chains and gold trinkets dangled from them. He also had bars of gold through his ears, and a gold nose ring decorated his wide nose. He's also like an absolute mammoth of a man. She describes him as absolutely huge. He is 120 years old, and he smells like chestnuts. Sometimes like roasting chestnuts, which I don't think I know what chestnuts smell like, but I don't know that I would find it all that appealing. Just saying. Just me. Also, how does somebody smell like chestnuts? Is he like holding them in his pockets or something? Whatever. Anyway. So, 3 insanely hot dudes like standing over her right when she wakes up after being dumped on their front door, basically. Gee, I wonder if these 3 hot dudes will become love interests later on. Let's find out. Now, if I haven't said this already, this is an enemies to lovers romance. And enemies they most certainly are. This isn't one of those like cutesy, like, oh yeah, we kind of didn't get along and then we knew more about each other and then, you know, the dude's all like sweet and stuff. Nah, these people do not get along. And these dudes, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on. There is immediately suspicion of Sadie in how she showed up here because, as I read before, these portals, these fortresses are well hidden. And their locations are like top secret. So it's real weird that she's just showed up here. Now, they do get a letter from something called the oligarchy, which is like the ominous ruling force that we never get like a person to assign with. They are just this force that's mentioned all the time. And they're kind of douchey. Shocker. Controlling entities, douchey? Never heard of it. Never seen it before. So, these alphas surrounding her are not only hot, but they're kind of douchey. They are suspicious of Sadie because she just showed up there. They also find out from a letter from the oligarchy that she is an alpha. They confirm it. And they're like, this scrawny little girl, because alphas are supposed to be like very physically impressive, and she's like this tiny little scrawny woman. So they have their doubts, and they kind of douchey about them doubts. So they ask her like, hey, what animal are you? Or like, what's your alpha form or whatever? And she's like, bitch, I don't know. I just found out I was an alpha like, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, dudes. So immediately after she arrives, they throw her into like a fighting ring. They call it training, but it's literally just like boxing over 100 people in a day in the first few hours that she's there. Now she is fighting the betas. She doesn't fight any of the 3 alphas, and there's only 3 alphas there. Betas greatly outnumber alphas and omegas. So anyway, yeah, she's like thrown into the boxing ring, and this little scrawny girl who's never had any training manages to hold her own against these people who are way more massive than she is and who've obviously been training because she uses the numb. After kicking ass, according to her, of the many fights she had, although she lost some matches, she defeated over 100 people. After all of the fighting, the men are like way more suspicious of her because they're like, who taught you how to do that? And she's like, nobody taught me how to fight, because nobody has. It's just the numb. But she doesn't tell them about the numb because, I don't know, it would ruin all of the plot points for the rest of the book. That's literally the only reason why she wouldn't say anything. So after the fighting and Sadie being all like, boom, boom, kick ass, she gets taken to her own room because apparently she doesn't get to room with all of the alphas until her shifted form shows itself. I don't know, rules and stuff, I guess. So she's taken to her own room, and Jax, who's like the most helpful out of the 3 alphas and the least douchey, tells her to take a bath and use the healing salts, which are made from ground up unicorn bones. Don't ask. I don't have answers for you. The book never tells you anything else. But healing bath. So, Sadie, who has like literal broken bones from fighting, puts the healing unicorn salts in the bath, and 30 minutes later, broken bones are healed. After her lovely little bath, she goes to dinner or some sort of meal, I don't know, and she's sitting with the alphas. Now, this book. Okay. I really like this book series. I mean, I'm making a freaking video about it, right? And I don't hate the book series. I have some issues with it. I really do. But I read like 5 books within like a week. So obviously there's something about them that's good and interesting. But that doesn't mean there aren't parts that don't physically hurt me. I'm the type of person that really suffers from secondhand embarrassment. It's the reason why I couldn't watch The Office until I was a literal adult. Because when somebody does something embarrassing and I have to watch it or read about it, it's like I did the embarrassing thing. And I literally feel it in my body as if I just said and did the thing. Now, Sadie, Sadie's kind of cringy. I'm not gonna lie to you. She makes weird jokes. I mean, to be fair, the girl has not been properly socialized. She's got mental issues. She's got trauma. I'm not holding anything against her, really. But sometimes the things she does and says physically hurt me. So just a warning, if you decide to give this series a read, give it a try, that's something you're gonna have to deal with if it bothers you like it bothers me. Prepare yourself. Now, it obviously wasn't so bad that I stopped reading, so credit where credit's due, I guess. Now, anyway, after some slightly cringy things at the mealtime, Sadie steals a knife from the dining hall, is what they call it, because there is a beta shifter who has been like giving her the death glare since she got there. She saw him during the like bam fight and stuff, and she also saw him at the dining hall. He was like death glare, like laser eyes. Oh my god.
You see, he's got the laser eyes.
Anyway, so to like keep herself safe and also because of like trauma and stuff, she steals a knife, like a butcher knife, from the hall, and then she goes to bed. Now, when she was staying with Dick, she did not really have a bed. She slept on the floor, pretty much. Harry Potter-esque. So instead of sleeping in the bed, in this room that she has all to herself, she decides to fall asleep on the floor right by the door. Apparently this is obviously very trauma related because Dick used to sneak in her room at night to do the, you know, I desperately don't want to get this video age restricted, okay guys? I'm trying so hard. So anyway, Sadie goes to sleep right in front of the door. In the middle of the night, she wakes up because somebody is opening her door. Now, Sadie tries to access the num, but it doesn't click on because apparently it does need time to regenerate. This is something that happens again in further books. It seems like it takes at least a day or so for the num to like regenerate, as Sadie calls it. So she doesn't have access to the num, so she's not like a super kick-ass fighter. It's just like little weenie girl with a freaking knife against somebody who is literally training for battle. The person who has broken into her room is the death glare beta who's been like staring at her all day. We find out in a later chapter that his name is Darren, if anybody cares. So Darren, beta guy, breaks into her room and tries to attack her both physically and sexually. He manages to do some physical attacking. He like busts her in the nose, which is like a common thing in these books. Like her little nose gets broken a dozen times, almost like maybe like half a dozen, but it's a thing. So he is physically attacking her. She has that butcher knife with her and pulls it out and manages to like cut him across the face. And when she does this, his tongue is also cut and actually removed from his mouth. So while he's, you know, attacking her, he basically says that he recognized her from the tavern that Dick owns, and he doesn't think that she's an alpha, that she deserves to be there. And I think his plan was basically to hurt her, YouTube guidelines here, and then drag her back to Dick's tavern. Hearing the commotion of the attack, all three of the alphas like bust into the room, pull the beta, Darren, off of Sadie, and are basically like, what the fuck is going on? But it's quite clear that Darren snuck into her room and attacked her. Cobra yoinks Darren, the beta who attacked Sadie, and takes him out into the hallway. There's a very short discussion between the other people in the room of like, what just happened? Sadie's also having like a literal mental breakdown. She's obviously suffering from PTSD, and because she didn't have the num clicked on, she wasn't like emotionless and like super badass. To be fair, she did defend herself well enough, but anyway, Sadie gets a little like freaked out because the two alphas in her room, Jax and Asher, start like geeking out after they come to realize what was going to happen to Sadie had they not broken in the room. So Sadie's like, I don't want to deal with this toxic masculinity. I'm going out into the hallway. Out in the hallway, she sees Cobra has Darren like pinned up against the wall and his body is broken. He has been messed up by Cobra. Big time. The other alphas come out into the hallway and are like, Sadie was gonna get R-worded by Darren. Sorry, YouTube guidelines. And Cobra, hearing that, just like snaps his neck. Like, no other questions asked. Not that Darren could talk because his tongue is literally missing, but everybody seems to believe Sadie. Although they are quite suspicious now because Sadie, who was able to beat the living poop out of over 100 people, is now like geeking out and totally freaking out by being attacked by one person. As we as the reader know, it's because she didn't have the num clicked on, but again, she won't tell anybody about the num. She says because she doesn't want to be considered like a crazy person and get like carted off to the psych ward, but it's literally just a plot device. Anyway, after this, Sadie is no longer staying in a room by herself. She goes and stays with the alphas. Sexy things to ensue with that coming up. Although please keep in mind, this is a slow burn, like the slowest of burns. These people really, they don't even do it until the third book, which is like, I don't know, I'm reading smut for a reason, people. Like, give me what I came here for. Anyway, off topic. Her first actual like full day of training, this is the day after the attack and her like beaten up dudes. They're starting to get into training for the day when an alarm goes off with a message that a portal is under attack by monsters. Sadie, who has had literally no training in her entire life, is sent out into battle with all of these people. They basically hand her a gun that they've never trained her to use, that she has never used before, and are like, okay, let's go fight. What? Why wouldn't they let her sit out this one fight? Whatever. She goes to the battlefield. Jax, who is in charge, he's like head alpha boy, man, whatever. He's like 120 years old. Obviously, he's a man. I will refer to him as boy or the boys later on. But anyway, Jax is in charge, so he's like giving out orders to everybody. So anyway, they all charge out into the freezing cold to go fight these monsters. What are these monsters exactly? Hugely massive spiders, but not just any spiders. These spiders have like spikes and or knives covering their legs, making them obviously horrifically hard to kill. So anyway, during the fight, she's trying to stay back as Jax basically told her to do, but one of these giant spider things, I think there are like one or two of them there, one of these spider things grabs Asher and starts booking it to a portal, seemingly trying to take his ass to the Fey realm for reasons we don't know at this point in time. Now, Sadie, seeing this and seeing that Cobra and Jax are obviously busy with the one spider monster thing, she transforms into her alpha form because of the stress of the battle or whatever. And her alpha form is a saber-toothed tiger, which isn't technically a tiger. Saber-toothed tigers have absolutely no relation to tigers or lions. They're saber-toothed cats, but whatever. She's a saber-toothed tiger. She runs her furry little butt after Asher and the spider who's like got him, because they also have like pinchers or something like that. I don't know, whatever. The spiders got Asher and she runs her furry little butt after him. Oh, we also see everybody's shifted forms. So Jax is a bear, huge giant bear who has like spikes or like plates or something like that coming out of his back. Asher is like goat man.
Fuck you, goat man.
No, literally. So like the onyx horns, he always has those even when he's not shifted. But when he does shift, he basically becomes like half, like he's like man and horns, but then his bottom half are like goat legs. So literal goat man. And then Cobra, who I literally forgot to say this, but his whole body is covered in like diamonds and emeralds of sorts. Those like diamonds shift into these tiny black snakes that like cover his body, and he has complete and total control over them. Anyway, back to the battle. Sadie, hops her furry little butt after Asher and the spider monster that's got a hold on him. Now Sadie fights off this monster, puts her little teeth into his, what are those things called on spiders? It's not their butt. It's whatever. I'll put the word right here. This part of the spider, she sinks her claws into, her fangs into, her saber tooths into, which are arm length. They're absolutely huge. She is a massive saber-toothed tiger. Tiger. They call her a tiger in the book. They're saber-toothed cats though. Whatever. Anyway, so she is got her teeth sunk into this spider who has Asher, and he is unable to get away on his own. She basically just holds the spider down until Jax and Cobra get there, and they end up killing the thing. Cobra, with his little snakes all over his body, sends the snakes onto the spider beast, and they bite the spider and he dies because his snakes are venomous, even though they're little shadows. Whatever. I didn't write the story, okay? So Sadie has literally saved Asher from being kidnapped by a giant spider creature, monster. And what happens? Jax yells at her for running off, and Asher says he didn't need her help. I would never help the motherfucker ever again. I would literally be like, all right, next time I'll let it kidnap you. Have fun. Anyway, they're total jerks about it. We learn that Asher is kind of a hothead and is sort of temperamental. So that's kind of the explanation for why he freaks out on Sadie and is a total jerk to her after she literally saved his butt. So after this first battle, Sadie, in her tiger form, basically walks back into the fortress, or whatever we're gonna call it, and she refuses to shift back into her human form until everybody leaves the room because of the scars on her back. She doesn't want anybody to see. This was a plot point earlier in the book when they woke up before the battle. This is definitely a theme throughout the rest of this book, is Sadie keeping her scars hidden from the men. Now, the boys take this as she's prissy or a prude, and she doesn't want to change in front of them because she's too good to be seen by them or something. They're honestly huge dickheads about it. Genuinely. She's literally covered in scars from Dick being a dick. So yeah, that's kind of a really big plot point, and also is one of the reasons why the men don't trust her, sort of because of this secrecy that she has. As I mentioned, during the fight, we see everybody's shifted forms. Now, Sadie, in her shifted form, talks to Cobra. Well, Cobra talks to her. She's a tiger. She can't speak. So Cobra goes up to Sadie's tiger form and is kind of touching her. While he's touching her, one of his shadow snakes jumps off of him and onto her. This isn't a major plot point in this book, but it absolutely comes back in the second and third book. Sadie will keep this snake on her, and it's basically a connection to Cobra. Now, Sadie keeps the snake hidden. She thinks Cobra doesn't know it's there. So she kind of treats it as her little friend, kind of a little paramour that's always with her, because she definitely feels the alphas are all against her and she doesn't have a whole lot of friends. Now, over the course of the book, we do get POVs from all three men, at least 2 chapters from each one. While in each of their POVs, we learned that they're all pretty obsessed with Sadie, just in different ways. Jax is very protective. We find out he has a lot of sisters and is protective of women in general, but has especially developed feelings for Sadie. Asher, who generally has a pretty low opinion of women, does see Sadie differently, as does Cobra. Now, I don't personally like this trope. I take issue with the "you're different from other girls" kind of trope, because it's damning an entire gender, and it's just this one woman, for whatever reason, who is different or special or whatever, what have you. So I don't personally love that trope, but it is definitely true for both Asher and Cobra, and we find that out through their POVs. The first male POV we get is Cobra. We find out that he actually spent the majority of his life in the Fae realm as a captive. he was not a free person in that realm. And he faced, although we don't go into specifics in this book, faced some nasty things because of the Fae Queen, which is why he has the opinions about women that he does. He also puts the idea into the reader's head that not everybody fighting in this shifter war believes the reasons that they have been told. Now, while in Cobra's POV, we find out that he has something kind of similar to the numb, but he calls it the void. Now, Sadie mentions the numb as something that's in her mind that she can click on and off, whereas Cobra talks about the void as part of his soul. This blackness, this darkness that is just within him at all times, and he actually has to fight against it. Cobra describes the void in my soul. The one that made me cruel and harsh was a dark swirling abyss with no end. One plot point of Cobra that's like not super heavy, which is part of why I haven't mentioned it, is Cobra doesn't talk to women except for Sadie, of course, but it's because of all of the BS that he had to deal with in the Fae realm, which we don't get a lot of details on in this first book, but the very beginning of the second one, it is given to us in explicit detail, and it's messed up. It's real messed up. Now, in Cobra's POV, we find out that not only are he and Jax in a relationship together, they have a very intimate relationship. Cobra is a little bit obsessive with people that he's interested in. Regarding his relationship with Jax, Cobra says, "The big alpha was my end and my beginning. My everything." I'm gonna have to bleep some of this out, but regarding Sadie, regarding Jax and Sadie, kind of, he says, "Jax was a fight that soothed the void inside me. My instincts told me that the girl would be the same. No, she was a woman, and I despised them all." Just super, really healthy, great thoughts. Like, mentally well. Not. Getting into some of the other POVs that we get during the middle of the book, kind of like interspersed, is Asher. Asher also has some fucked up stuff with women. Like, oh, it's rough. So he grew up in something called the Syndicate. It basically run by his father, who's not a nice man, very controlling. Asher grew up in just such an unhealthy place. The only women that he was surrounded by were concubines, basically women that were just there for sexy time. That's it. He says, "I thought I was different from my father, that I was better than him. I'd been wrong. As a teen, I genuinely believed I had real connections with a few of the girls in the compound. My spirits had been crushed time after time when I caught my girlfriend stealing my phone trying to access my credit line. Now I recognized a woman's use. We're good for f***ing and passing the time, but it would never be more than that." Again, just great, healthy relationship with women in general. Both Asher and Cobra's relationship with women is because of like trauma and stuff, but again, it's like but Sadie is different. Sadie's the one woman who's different, which is just fucking toxic bullshit. But why am I obsessed with this book? I don't know. Genuinely don't know sometimes. Now, Jax is the only one that has any sort of a healthy relationship around women. We find out that he does have several sisters, and that his mother was a null shifter who, although she has lived a very long life, does pass away, and he is now taking care of 4 girls, all on his own. Now, his thoughts on Sadie are as follows. This following line was during the first battle, when Sadie went and like ran after the spider all on her own immediately after she had shifted for the first time. He says, "Sheer terror, the depths of which I had never experienced, had coursed through me when the Fae had barreled towards Sadie. My beast had gone crazy inside me. Mine, a voice had told me. I wanted to claim the magnificent alpha. I wanted to make her mine." So some possessive stuff there for sure, but that's kind of like the alpha vibe. Jack's definitely the most normal, has the most healthy relationship with women, even if he's very, dominant. It's just kind of like a trait of all alphas. So after our first battle, Jax, who's like kind of freaking out, is real upset at Sadie for what she did, demands that she go see a doctor. They call it the ward. She has to go to the ward and be like checked over. Even though she literally says after shifting into her alpha form, she feels better than she did beforehand because apparently shifting heals them? I don't know. That part doesn't really come back into play. So anyway, Sadie is taken to the ward to be checked out by a doctor with all three alphas like hovering over her. And Jax especially gets kind of like touchy here. Like touchy with Sadie. Like touchy. Sorry, not like that kind of touchy, but he does a thing in movies and in books, especially smutty books, where like he like leans over her and like both of his arms are on the like either side of her, and sorry, I have to hold up my microphones. Just imagine my other hands up. And is obviously like kind of into her. So there's this like kind of sexual tension building between her and Jax, even though it's kind of being a douche. The boys leave her there in the ward to be checked over. A beta by the name of Aaron walks up to her. Aaron is gonna be her fucking bestie. Aaron is kind of small for a beta and has blue, like bright blue, fucking turquoisey sort of hair. And they immediately bond over shitty mental health. I wish I was kidding. They literally bond over trauma, PTSD, and shit mental health. They're also both a little psychotic. Do I have hair on me? I do have hair. Anyway, they're both a little mentally unstable. And they bond over that. So Aaron basically becomes Sadie's best friend, doesn't leave her side. More on Aaron later. Actually, more on Aaron in like the next couple books. No, more on Aaron a little bit later in this book. At the very end. Say it at the end of the video. Anyway. After Sadie meets Aaron, she gets checked over by the doctor and she's given like the all clear. So she walks back to the room that she shares with all the other alphas. And I'll give you one guess about what she walks into. Oh, how will I stay monetized while describing this? Okay, so Jax has Cobra up against the wall and they getting busy. And Asher is there in the room watching them, and although he is not partaking in what they are partaking in, he is watching voyeuristically and enjoying it. Oh, I'm gonna get banned from YouTube. Sadie, seeing this, is like into it. She is very much attracted to all of the men, and she has absolutely no idea how to react. So she just honestly stands there and watches, and she thinks she's being super sneaky and nobody like sees her or knows she's there. So she just keeps watching until Asher says something about her. So all of the men have little nicknames for her. Jax calls her the little alpha, Asher calls her princess, and Cobra calls her kitten. All very respectful nicknames. So Asher, while he's, says something about Sadie, and Jax and Cobra respond to it in the affirmative. And then once completion has arrived for Jax and Cobra, and also Asher, they'll turn around and look at Sadie, making it quite obvious that they knew she was there the whole time. Sadie, who is a virgin, of course, if I haven't mentioned that yet, genuinely has no idea how to react. So what does she do? She clicks on the numb. And then she goes in with like utter confidence and is totally emotionless and kind of badass, and just like walks past them like totally nonchalant and goes and like takes a bath or something. She keeps the numb on for quite some time. And to remind you, the numb is a homicidal voice, not emotionally balanced or regulated in any sort of way. So she acts a little bit fucking crazy, not gonna lie to you. Later that day, or maybe the next day, she is in class with all of the alphas and Aaron. The person teaching the class is somebody called Auntie. I don't know. Anyway, she presents a question to Sadie and asks her, what would you do if you came across 3 betas who had defected? Basically, like, ran away from battle. And Sadie, under the influence of the numb, gives an absolutely homicidal answer. basically saying that she would murk them all and make it look like an accident. And although Auntie approves of this answer, is like, hey, yeah, that's great. You're coming to psychological lessons with me, though, or psychological therapy sessions or something once a week with Auntie. Aaron, her bestie, who's sitting right next to her, says something equally crazy to get himself into the weekly classes with her, which the alphas are not happy about. So after she and Aaron get sent to psychological, basically therapy classes, it's the next day, and the numb has switched off, and she's back fighting, but she doesn't have the numb, so she now absolutely sucks at fighting. She's boxing it out with this beta named John, who will come back into play later, and he's basically trying to get on her good side, to be honest with you. And Aaron does not like this dude at all. Sadie, though, is like, I need all the friends I can get, shove off. We're chill now. I'm chill with John. Bad call. Just foreshadowing. After the fight training, Sadie does have a nightmare, actually, which she does suffer from pretty regularly. Now, Asher wakes up, or was already awake, I can't remember, and tries to calm Sadie down, but Asher's not very helpful, literally at all. I think he tries to smack her across the face to wake her up, which she does not respond to well, but she's having a nightmare about Dick and what he used to put her through. Jax and Cobra wake up, and Cobra, who is the most crass, he's the rudest to Sadie, gets in bed with her and cuddles her and calms her down. Is very sweet. The next morning, Sadie wakes up with Cobra in her bed, and some tomfoolery happens. She's like, what the fuck are you doing in here, basically? And he was trying to help you, but he's a total jerk about it, so whatever. Later that day, in training, Cobra has everybody run, I don't know, 5 miles or something like that. Now, something about Sadie, she sucks at running. Totally relatable. I also suck at running. It's just a form of torture, TBH. I don't know why people think it's enjoyable. Anyway, Sadie sucks at running. Absolutely dismal. And she doesn't have the numb clicked on at this point in time because she used it for something totally pointless. So she can't use it in training now. And all of the dudes definitely notice this, and it's another point or tally or whatever into her basically being a spy. They think she's a spy or has some sort of devious ulterior motive, and that's why all of the secrecy with her. The only huge plot point, or really any plot point at all, that happens during this run is Aaron asks Sadie to be his date to the, oh god, I literally don't know how to say this word. It's the stupidest word. It's in fucking Latin. Hold on. I'm saying this name once. I'll put it on the screen as well. It is pronounced Inuarius, I think. Hold on, let me listen to that one more time. Yenuarius. The Yenuarius celebration. If that's not a fucking mouthful, Jasmine Maps, what the fuck? Anyway, it's a huge celebration where all of the shifters in the realm go. And they're gonna be dates. That's honestly, that celebration will be at the very end of the book. So it does eventually tie back. After the run, Sadie goes and finds this person who I have not mentioned because literally the only plot point of this person is this map thing right here. So there's a beta shifter who's named Zed who befriends her and is kind of there on her side for several things. But the main reason he's even a character in the book is so he can help Sadie find a map. Sadie is trying to find her way to her sister Lucinda, who's at school. So she asks Zed for a map. He takes her and gives her a huge book full of a bunch of different maps of all of the different realms. Sadie runs with the book and literally hides under the covers to go look at it because she thinks she shouldn't have it. In this book, she sees a mention of 4 different realms: the human realm, the Relecta realm, the Fae realm, and the Beast realm. Now, Sadie has never heard of the Relecta realm. She knows what the human realm and the Fae realm are, but she's never, ever heard of the Beast realm. And all of these different realms are plot points for the later books. So, if I do another video on this, on this series, keep that in mind. Now, while she's hiding under the covers reading this, Asher comes into the alpha room with two female betas who were like kind of pieces of shit to Sadie earlier when she was running all pathetically. And they were like kind of huge douches to her. And Asher is getting busy with them. And Sadie, being a little freak, instead of being like, oh my god, hey, I'm in here, she just hides under the covers and listens and watches Asher with the two girls who are like twins, which anyway. So Asher, while he's starting, is kind of getting busy with these two ladies, tells them to stop. They kind of don't, and then he says Sadie's name instead of either of their names. And before anything too for serial can happen, Jax and Cobra walk into the room and kind of stop everything. Sadie's just there, hiding under the covers. Nobody knows she's there, but she's seen everything that just happened with Asher and these two women. It does come back at one point in time later, but it's hella awkward. So anyway, after this hiding under the bed thing, she has to report with Aaron back to Auntie's for their mental health classes, pretty much, because they both a little bit unwell in that regard. The main information that we as the reader gather from this little mental health sesh is that Sadie is really only homicidal when the numb is clicked on, and Aaron is homicidal all the time. Kind of shocks Sadie, because she really thought Aaron was just kind of like fibbing to get in the class with her. But no, Aaron is truly messed up in the head. While Sadie and Aaron are in these like little mental health sessions, Auntie gets taken over by an absolutely unknown force and reads them a prophecy, specifically a fae prophecy. The prophecy reads as such: blood and ice will fall the lie, color and white to break the queen, air and friend join and tie, a reborn quad the fates foreseen. Anyway, this totally freaks out Sadie and Aaron because Auntie is like taken over by a force and her voice is no longer her voice. And after the prophecy, she like slumps over. And Aaron and Sadie are just like holding each other, totally terrified. And they GTFO and tell nobody about this prophecy, but it does come back a little bit later in the next book. Now, the only other thing that really happens after this prophecy that's any sort of anything to the main plot of the book is Sadie and Cobra start fighting because they're both just like really well balanced people who can communicate very well with each other. So they start like going at it, and Sadie shifts into her saber-toothed tiger form and literally has Cobra like in her mouth and like shaking him around. Which is not the only time that she does this. And you know what? Vibes. I'm here for her. I am here to support her. And Cobra, in defense, gets one of his snakes to bite Sadie. Now, these snakes killed a spider monster thing, but he only has one of the snakes bite her, so technically it's just supposed to like hurt her pretty badly. But instead of the snake bite and the snake venom or what have you hurting her, she gets immensely turned on, like almost painfully so, and is kind of like begging the dudes to like, you know. None of them do, because she's obviously under the effects of this venom from Cobra, who's totally shocked by this, and they basically just like knock her out to get it to stop. Because it's just like their problem solving skills are just on the fucking floor, dude. After this totally awkward like weirdness with the snake bite and the dude like punching Sadie out, they don't actually punch her out. Jax like alpha commands her to go to sleep. They are super weird with her afterwards. I think it's basically meant to imply that they're all super into her and just don't know how to deal with it, which is just about accurate for men. Next major plot point after that is the second battle. Now, Sadie goes into it like she's alpha now, so she shifts into her saber-toothed tiger, cat, whatever, tiger. She shifts, but Jax is still being like super protective of her and is like, stay behind me. But when they get to the actual battle, there's even more creepy spider things, and Jax starts to fight one with a bunch of betas, but then another spider like runs off in the opposite direction, so she Asher, and Cobra all run after that one. She basically runs into a giant trap and gets caught in the spider's webs. Now, these aren't just normal spider webs, of course. These webs are, I can't remember if it's like described as knives, but they're incredibly sharp webs. They cut her skin, even through all of this like fur that she has on her saber-toothed tiger, cat, whatever. In this second battle, there's really no major plot points to discuss, but Sadie like kind of kicks ass until she doesn't and then needs to be rescued by Cobra. Afterwards, though, they all walk back to the fortress, and Sadie, again, refuses to shift in front of everybody, so everybody clears out, and Sadie actually passes out because she's, like, covered on all of these webs that are just, like, slicing her open. When she comes to, she is naked and being dragged through the forest on her back, with her like legs up in the air. Now, who is doing this to her? The beta John, who tried to befriend her earlier. He is taking her to one of the portals, kidnapping her and trying to take her to the Fae realm. Now, Sadie, having just turned on the numb for the last battle, can't access it because, again, it needs to recharge. So she can't really defend herself in the ways that she has previously. She also can't shift into her saber-toothed tiger form because of this necklace that John is wearing that's like glowing and blue. More information on that later. Now she can't shift. She's naked, being dragged through the woods. Her only weapon is being annoying. So she is screaming like a psycho, like, why can't I shift? Why can't I shift? And a line, oh god, I love this line. Numb Sadie knew the power of silence. Unnumb Sadie knew the power of screaming like a psycho. Which is exactly what she does. She's, you know, ranting and raving, trying to stop herself from being kidnapped to another frickin' realm. She does eventually, like, get away from him for, like, a second, but he obviously overpowers her much smaller frame, and she eventually has to be rescued by Jax, who is the only person that has noticed that, you know, she's freaking gone. Now, Jax knocks out John, like, cold, and grabs Sadie and takes her back to the fortress, of course, because she's butt-ass naked. He sees her scars, and she tells him about all the things that she went through and, like, how that happened. But she begs Jax not to tell the other alphas about it because reasons, I don't know. So Jax basically drops Sadie off at the fortress and then goes back out to get John, the kidnapper. The number of J names in this frickin' series just gets worse and worse. Just genuinely. The author, I guess Jasmine is her name, so it makes a lot of sense, but half the characters in this thing have J names. Like, I haven't even gotten to all of them. So anyway, breathing. Jax grabs John, brings him back to the fortress, and handcuffs him, and these handcuffs are enchanted to force him to tell the truth. While interrogating John, the alphas ask him, why you stealing alphas? Why would the Fae Queen want Sadie, an alpha? And John says, the Fae Queen doesn't want alphas. The beasts do. They pay the queen to bring them back, but the Fae Queen is playing both sides. You don't know who you're fighting for. You're all fools. And then when they try to question him further, they notice this blue necklace that he is wearing basically like takes over his whole body, covers him in blue flames, and kills him. Now Cobra recognizes these blue flames as the Fae Queen's blue flames. That's her power. These next few things that happen towards the end of the book, like the last, like, I don't know, quarter or so of the book, like things just start happening, like bam, 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 bam. So this to the end of the book is so many things. Like, it just happened in such quick succession. So Aaron, Sadie's little blonde-haired friend, finds a white kitten in the fortress and brings it to Sadie. And it's like, oh, look at this little kitten I found. And Sadie was like, oh my god, a little kitten. Aaron gives the kitten to Sadie, and there's a few scenes with her, you know, like loving up on the kitten, cuddling it. I think there's even one scene where she's crying, like hidden under the covers, and none of the alphas realize she's crying, but like the kitten like comes up to her and like licks her tears away, and it's super cute. But it all happens in the last like 20% of the book. So the little kitten, a couple of things with the little kitten, and then it's time to get ready for the party. So Aaron takes Sadie into the closest town to the fortress portal, what have you, and they go to a dress shop where there's this kind of wholesome moment where the ladies in the dress shop who are taking her measurements like see the scars on her back and are like, oh my god, and design her a dress that will cover up all of her scars but still like super sexy. On that day, she puts red streaks in her platinum hair, which the dudes tease her mercilessly for, even though they're totally into it, because men just have great communication skills. Really, the only other plot point on their like day out is that Aaron does take her to go get a massage. She gets a massage by this beta named Micah. I think we're gonna call him Micah. But yeah, anyway, he's like into her because she's the protagonist and everybody has to be a little bit into the protagonist, I guess. Anywho, after they get all ready for the party, it's you know, like a couple other things happen, but it's pretty much party time. So Sadie goes to the party with Aaron, her date. The two of them are like getting real tipsy as I pick my nose, excuse me. Aaron and Sadie getting a little tipsy, having a lot of fun. When Micah, the beta who gave Sadie a massage, I don't know, like a day before or something, shows up, and Sadie, being a little drunk, is kind of like hanging all over him, and you know, he grabs a little ass. Now all of the alphas, Jax, Cobra, and Asher, are there and see this happen, and because they are all great communicators and have such balanced emotions, they beat the shit out of him for touching Sadie. Just anyway. After this beating of this man, Jax like walks away outside of the party, and Cobra takes Sadie into a coat closet and goes down on her. I don't know if that's YouTube approved. He goes down under. It's the first time anything like overtly sexual has happened between any of them, and we're like 90% of the way through the book. So Sadie and Cobra are in the closet, like a coat closet or like a broom closet or something. Anyway, doing all this. Asher walks in on them and starts like beating Cobra again, because they're balanced, healthy men who know how to communicate their emotions in a healthy way. So they're beating on each other, and Sadie's like, have so much fun with that. I'm gonna leave. She goes to find Jax. She walks outside where she thinks Jax is, and she does find him, but he's like fallen over on the ground, completely and totally passed out. So she's like checking him and is like, oh my god, Jax, are you okay? Wake up, wake up. And what does she see but her little kitten that Aaron gave her walking out of the bushes. Now they are miles from the fortress in a totally different town, and she did not take that kitty cat with her. And what do we find out? That the kitty is not a kitty. It's actually an omega, this like pretty impressively sized omega who has long blonde hair and purple eyes, because people be having wild eye colors in this universe. I don't know, don't ask me. So we find out in very quick succession that the cat that Aaron found in the fortress was an omega who was working for the Fae Queen. Now Sadie takes her high heel that she's wearing and like throws it, or like jabs the omega. Xerxes, I think is his name. She stabs him with her high heel and turns around to see Asher carrying a passed out Cobra on one shoulder and a passed out Aaron on the other shoulder. Now what happens next? Well, the five of them, because 3, 4, 5. Yeah, the 5 of them, Sadie, Aaron, Jax, Cobra, Xerxes, and Asher. 6. I mean, I said I'm 6. The 6 of them all realm jump. I'm not getting into it. Realm jump into the Fae realm, where they are immediately presented with the Fae Queen, who, allow me to remind you, has been sending monsters into the realm because of some Fae war. That's what they've been told anyway. But it appears that she has been trying to steal alphas. And what does the Fae Queen say when they all arrive? And Sadie's the only one that's like conscious at this point besides Asher and Xerxes. The queen says, "Thank you for bringing my daughter back to me." And Sadie, like, for a moment is like, "Are you fucking kidding me? No, I'm not related to this crazy bitch." Actually, she's not. The daughter is Aaron. Aaron has been disguising himself as a man, but it was actually the Fae Queen's daughter, Arabella. Keep in mind, this is like, all of this is in the second to last chapter of the freaking book. Now, we discover that Asher has been a spy this whole time and was working for the Fae Queen, trying to get all of the alphas to the Fae realm for reasons that we do not yet know. And that's the end of the first book, friends and folks. Literally, that's how the book ends. They all end up in the Fae realm with the Fae Queen. Asher and the little kitten are betrayers. And that's the first book. That's it. That's how they end the book. That's how they end the freaking book. With like this semi-exposition dump of Asher being a spy, the kitten being a spy, Aaron being Arabella, who is not a man but a woman and is the Fae princess. And that's the first book. I literally wish there was something else that I could wrap this up with, but that's how the first book ends. It is an absolute cliffhanger. We get this big exposition dump and then it's like, okay, see you in book 2. Which honestly is part of the reason why I probably got so hooked. I think most of the books end on a cliffhanger, which really like pulls you into reading the next book. The whole series is totally out, so if you guys enjoyed this video, I can absolutely make a video for every book in the series. I've read 5 of the 6 books, I just haven't finished the last one. So yeah, let me know if you want that. Let me know if that's something you want to see. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and press some buttons down below if you're into that kind of thing. If not, I'll see you in the next one.